Hi, I'm Bobby Jones, the host for Acme Architectural Hardware's podcast. Today we've got Tim Richards with us. He's going to give us a little bit of the history of the company, a little bit of look into where we've been and where we're heading as a company. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you.
Give us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I'm second generation. I started working here part-time in 1979 while still in high school. Upon completing my education, I came here full-time in 1986 with some experience in rebuilding door closers and doing bench locksmith work. And soon after, I moved into sales, counter sales. We were a distribution company. And from that point, I just learned all I could. And at this time, I'm now the president and owner of the company and looking forward to continuing growth.
Second generation in. What's the history? Give us a little bit of a background on Acme.
So Acme was purchased in 1949. We can date it back, we believe, to 1918. So we feel like we've celebrated 100 years now. But in 1949, my father, Hub, and his brother, Baldy, purchased this company from the Tutwiler family. At that time, what they purchased was more debt and less customers than they realized, so they immediately had to do a whole lot of work. They found a customer base in the valley along the Texas border and down in the parishes of Louisiana, going there and collecting defective door closers from school districts and then bringing those door closers back to Houston and cleaning them, rebuilding them, reassembling them, and then taking them back to the same schools. That was a way for them to generate an income that would allow them to continue business. And then another thing they did while they were in those valleys, because at that time there were no Walmarts, there were no real stores for these customers down in far South Texas or even in the parishes of Louisiana, they would take the orders for sports equipment. And so they would come back here and go to Sears and they would buy basketballs, baseballs, footballs, etc. And so here they'd go back with a load of door closers and sports equipment and sell those to the school districts as well. Early in the 1950s, they were able to get their first distribution, which was the Sargent Lock Company. And from that, they began to grow. There was a large company here in Houston at that time called Peden Iron and Steel. They got in tight with that group and started doing the service work for that group. So they morphed from just door closers to becoming locksmiths. And they were going out and doing master key projects and doing repairs and service. And they worked hard for many years and began to build a reputation. And through growth, they began to expand to their brick and mortar. And about 1960, they built their first larger shop. And they brought in some material and a little bit of distribution came. Here they were doing service, and then they began doing some distribution. And the service was going along great. They were at that time the largest service company in Houston. About 1980, they made the decision, when Peden Iron and Steel had shuttered their building, they decided that they would sell off the service business and go distribution full-time. And that's what they did. At that time, they had two locations on a block in downtown Houston, two separate buildings in the same block. And they loaded it up with all they could and continued to push this distribution. By that time, the second generation, my older brothers, Randy and Barry, were involved, and they were assisting in the distribution portion of it. They had been, of course, in the service part of it when we still had that business. But it was growing, and along about 1990, the first generation was pretty much out of the business. My oldest brother had made a decision to follow other interests, and he was pulling out. And so that left my brother Barry and I. And in 1994, we began to consolidate all of the stock from the two families and ended up being able, within a short amount of time, we were able to purchase all of it and get full control of the company. And at that point, we worked with the factories, took advantage of bulk discounts, and really pushed the distribution. We bought like never before. And it seemed at that time, the more we bought, the more we sold. It was interesting how it worked. If we bought more door closers, we sold more door closers. If we bought more locks, we sold more locks. And so we were throwing everything we had at it. And that was going great until we began to see that slowdown of 2009, 2010. And at that point, just like everybody else, we flattened out and just kind of held on for that ride. Came out of it. We came out of it fine. We didn't have to let anyone go. We didn't have to make any major changes other than cut back on our inventory some. And we began to build the distribution up again. But we began to see needs out there, and the needs was in the service. That the customers just weren't being serviced properly. By then, we had more folks come into the business. Our longtime CPA had joined with us, and he had some great ideas that he brought with him and really got involved. Other people came into the company that got involved, and we began to see this service company grow. At this point, we now have the third generation. Two of my sons and my brother's daughter are now here, and they're training for this third generation. And so with that said, we are building for the future.
Just looking to tomorrow. That's awesome. Let's cover a little bit about what Acme is today. We've gone from strictly a hardware distribution company to now we've branched out into sales of hardware, doors and frames. We do access control, door automation, Division 10, and recently even picked up fire and life safety. These are monumental jumps in a short time span. And most of the customer base that we've got has come along with us for this ride into these new areas. How do you see that playing out?
Well, we always, when we were a distribution company, it was all about customer service. You know, I believed strongly, and all of us did, in customer service. And it was our job when the customer came in to not just sell them a new product, but to solve their problems. As that played out and we began to grow, it was brought to our attention that we should focus more on the customer experience. And that if we focused on the customer experience, the service would be there. And so what we did is we began to listen, and we took on a little motto. We have it on all of our vehicles, and it's called Your One-Stop Door Shop. And with that thought, we began to think, how can we solve the need of the full, total opening? And so we already had the distribution. We had the hardware in place. We were now getting involved in service, and that included everything from door, frame, wood door, automatic door, master keying, all the things that would be involved. We were doing basic access control, and that was great. And then we saw more need. We were able to work with a company and eventually purchase that company, and that really benefited us on being able to do this door work and be able to do the automatic door work in the hospitals and to make more contacts. We toyed with and then finally jumped in with two guys that had been in it for some time into Division 10. So we added that to our Division 8 scope. We began to fool with the partitions and the whiteboards and the curtains and everything that's in the Division 10 product. From there, we began to take our access control more seriously. How can we expand on that? So we hired a couple of people that were very involved in it and are working with them to do not only your basic access control, but to do the cameras and the different things that are in that Division 28 field and our networking where we can. We're working with the integrators to try and help them with their installs. So fit where we can in that opening. Our latest and our greatest has been this fire and life safety. We were very fortunate to have a big player from the Med Center come in and join us, and he has a lot of contacts. He's working with one of our top salesmen who works in the hospital districts all the time, and together they're attacking the hospitals and not only doing their hardware, but to deal with that fire and life safety, to go through and look for the deficiencies in the doors and then quote them to repair said deficiencies. And so many things, but all of this to be the customer experience.
Identifying a need and filling the need.
That's correct.
That's awesome. I realize I'm asking you to probably show your hand a little bit, but is there anything you want to tell us about the future, where we might be going, or you're going to play that one close to the vest?
As much as we're in the field and as much as we're dealing with customers, we see needs. Most of those needs are for speed. So we have things in play now to better identify the solution and to get that solution to that customer quicker. Changes are coming this year. We'll move into new ground and take on some new projects, all of this to get the solution to the customer a little bit quicker. We are also working on a website. We're working to improve that website to get it to where you can purchase from that website. And we actually have some neat ideas to go along with that, things that will expand our offering and what you can get from us.
A website would definitely aid the customer in being able to order, cut down their wait time, and streamline their efforts to pick up hardware. Are they going to be able to get doors and frames or request quotes and estimates from that website as well?
I have not addressed that and can't answer that. I would think that at this time it would be best to still call in for your doors and frames because there are so many variables.
Okay.
That to just plug that into a website for you to get that accurately at this time might not be your best bet.
Well, at least we'll
However, by calling in, we do keep blank slabs here, and we can cut a door to fit your need in days, not weeks, and get this problem solved.
That certainly gives the customer more than a single option out there. And I can see where Acme is working hard to cut down that time frame from concept to completion, cut that down to a matter of days rather than weeks.
That is correct. I put here on my piece of paper just to let the customers know we have at minimum at any given time 15 service vehicles on the road. Those service vehicles are identified for various reasons, but many of them are cross-trained, can go out, can assess your problem, can take the measurements they need, can bring that problem back here where we can solve it and get back to you quickly with an answer and a solution.
That's awesome. Keep a lookout. Acme's coming. We've got doors, frames, door automation, access control, fire life safety, Division 10. There's no telling where we're heading next. Keep an eye out for the podcasts. In the future, we're going to be covering a whole lot of ground. Total openings, total door. We'll see you next time on Acme Architectural Hardware's podcast.